Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Dev. And today in this video, we're going to talk about preparing for war. It's one of the more important things that you guys need to do as Rise of Kingdom players is knowing how to prepare for war. Because you don't know when exactly it's going to happen. You should always know how to prepare yourself. Now in this video, we're going to talk about a ton of different things and it's going to be chaptered, so please look in the description if you don't want to watch the whole video from start to finish, which I do want you to do because there's so much content, but there is chapters so you can come back to it later. So this video is really for those people who don't have what we have in our kingdom, a Bob for King. So you can be ready, because Bob for King is probably the most prepared person in this kingdom because he's a kick-ass player. Now, if you don't have a Bob for King like we do, you're going to follow this video and kind of figure out exactly what he does and what the rest of our kingdom does to prepare for war. So strap in, guys, because this is going to be awesome. So the first thing we're going to talk about are your troop counts, and you need to make sure that you know exactly how many troops that you have to fight. Now, as you can see here, I do not have a whole bunch of T4 and T5 troops. My troop counts are quite low, but I do need to conserve. So in this screenshot, you need to keep note of your hospital capacity and the amount of troops that you have. Because when you're fighting in war, you need to make sure you don't exceed both. You don't want to over exceed your troop fighting and now you have nothing left to kill barbarians with, and you don't go over your hospital capacity so that you know that you're not going to receive troop deaths. And when you're fighting in war, you need to constantly check your hospital capacity. Because if you're going out there with a full march of T5 troops and you get smacked, you need to make sure you come back and check your hospital capacity because there's a chance that it might be getting full. Now we're going to go ahead and change to our city theme that's going to help boost our infantry troops, because in this content video I'm focusing primarily on infantry. So we're going to change to the Temple of Vishnu, which is a 5% infantry health. The cab defense is minus 5%, but I don't really use cabs in the field. So for me, this city skin kind of works well. But go ahead and take a look at what the different types of city skins you have to choose from to kind of choose the best option for you. Whenever you're preparing for war, is changing your civilization. Now, I have just recently changed to France, and I'm going to show you a little clip of me changing civilizations and talk you through what happened. So I decided to change from Germany, which I was previously, and to change to France. I was Germany because I needed the 5% training speed, and plus it had an additional 10% AP recovery, which was really nice to have. But it was time for me to change. Why? Because I'm going to be healing a lot of troops in war, because I would rather heal than train new troops, because for me, I don't push in Mighty Governor events, so healing is more efficient for me. So I wanted the extra percent for healing, but also I wanted the troop health. I'm all about troop health. The other option I had for infantry is going for Rome. Rome gives you the 5% infantry defense, but not overall troop defense. It's just infantry specific. France gives me the 3% health for all troop types, so that's something to keep in mind. It does have a march speed on Rome, but for me that wasn't a big decision maker. It was more sided to France. Now, if I am a rally leader and I'm going to be leading a lot of rallies on flags and structures, especially ones that include cavalry, then I would take Arabia. Why? Because it has the 5% cavalry attack, plus it has 5% damage dealt by rallied armies. That's overall damage dealt. So every normal attack damage dealt, it's going to increase by 5%. Another option you can have is going Ottoman Empire. Now in Season 2 KVK, you're going to see a lot of archer rallies, and they're going to have an extreme amount of active skill damage. So having the 5% archer health and the 5% skill damage is really important for those that are running archer rallies. Now you could still go with Arabia and do the normal attack damage with a rallied army, but then now you're focusing more towards archer health and active skill damage going with Ottoman Empire. Now there's a bunch of other options too. These are specific to war type civilizations. Now when you're transitioning to a new civilization, it does cost 10,000 gems. I do want to make note that you can buy a civilization change in the Alliance shop, but it does cost 2 million Alliance credits. And if you're willing to put forth the credits to buy that, then you can at 2 million Alliance credits. Now let's get into the larger segment of this video as we start talking about commanders. Commanders are the most important part when fighting in war because you need to know what you have along with the troops that you do have to fight. So knowing both of this information will help you better as a fighter. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what we have available and what we're going to do today. The first thing that we're going to do is look at the talents, and I'm going to show you Richard's talent build that we're going to change. So we're going to open up the talents and we're going to check the build that we currently have. We're going to put the little arrow and we're going to take a look at the two builds. We have an open field build and a defend of Ark of Osiris. So we're going to change to our open field build, which is this one here, so that we can use this in the open field when we start fighting. Now let's talk about gear. Gear is probably one of the most important newest stats that are helpful to this game. Because of the fact that gear is so important, you get the extra stat boost on any time that you have gear on the commander. A good suggestion would be using another commander that you don't primarily use on the field and using them as a holder for your gear that you use on other commanders. So anytime that you're trying to switch the gear, for example, whenever I go into Ark of Osiris, I switch all of my gear that are currently on Alex and I switch it over to Guan. So I have a quick and easy transfer. Anytime that I'm switching the gear, I can just click on the gear and change it. And it'll be whatever that commander is currently wearing will go right over to Guan. And then for this video, guys, we're going to go ahead and forge two pieces of equipment that I'm going to be using on Sunday for the passes when they open. We're going to forge two legendary equipments. The first one will be Eternal Night. You're going to quick forge the gear and it's going to cost 15 million gold. And it's going to use 11 legendary chests and everything else is pretty much there except that there's some few choice chests in there. Oh, and we didn't get a special talent, but that's okay. So we're going to wait on equipping it, and we're going to also forge Shio's Return. Maybe we can get a special talent on this one. And no special talent on this one either. I was really hoping we would get a special talent, but we're not. So we're going to go ahead and equip them. And currently, we're going to put them on Constantine. So we'll change out the gear here. We'll click on Eternal Night. We'll go to Equip, and do the same thing to the boots. Now this is the gear that I will not be using on Constantine, but this is just an example. Now it's time to get our commanders on the field and prepare our marches. The first thing I want to show you is where you can see your troop capacity. You actually have it on your city hall. If you hit the information tab and then the information tab again, you can actually see your current troop capacity for your city hall level. Now that you know that, you can go into your commanders and see very specifically, each commander has a troop capacity right underneath their XP bar, so you can see just how many troops that they can hold without a troop expansion. If you do decide to use a troop expansion, it's best to do it now, so that whenever you're preparing your marches and putting them on the field, you're doing them with a troop expansion, so you already know what you have. For this video, I will not be doing a troop expansion because I will not be fighting with a troop expansion on D-Day. While we are in the boost screen, you can also take a look at the different types of defense and attack stats. Which one's going to benefit you more? Most of the time, 80% to 90% of the time, you're going to be using a defensive stat boost. The attack stat boost is very helpful, but most of the time you're going to be using defense because attack would only be situational based if you need to put a lot of damage on a target at one time. Defense is overall going to be better as well as having health. So having attack is good, but I would lean more towards having defense and health over attack. Now let's go ahead and put our commanders on the field. Now that we have all of our stats laid out, let's go ahead and get them out. So you're going to click and hold on your city. You're going to drag out. I already deleted all of my troops from my red preset build, so we can go ahead and build new troops. And I'm going to go ahead and build them out for you guys and then show you what I did when I'm done. Okay, now that we have our builds loaded out, let's go ahead and pull them out of our city. And as you're building each individual build, you're going to pull them out one by one. So that way you know exactly how many troops you have left in your city, so that way you'll be more effective on the field because you know exactly how many troops you have left. And now that you have 5 full marches on the field, if you have a troop expansion on, you should at this point, as you're building these, you can go in your city and see just how many troops you have left. That way, you know exactly what you have left to work with. And now, when you're fighting in war, you should never use all 5 marches unless you have the ability to come back to your city after that march dying and have a full march ready to go. So that's why it's actually recommended to not have multiple marches on the field at once, because you should only be specifically focused on 2 types of marches at a time. The last thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to preparing your marches is gathering a rune. Now, runes are very important when it comes to fighting in the open field, because you need to make sure that you have the right amount of stats that it's going to be beneficial to you as a player. Now, I've went ahead and already pre-marked, but you should do this before fighting and send your 1 troop army, or however your fastest march is, to go to the field and go find the best rune for you. Now, this site here at ULTX has the best stats. It has a 7% troop health, it also has a 10% healing speed, and it has a troop attack and march speed. It has everything I need. The rest of the stuff really doesn't matter to me, but the other ones actually do, so I can send a march and have it hang out here on the field and grab the runes as I need it. Now that we have all of our stats ready to go, we have our commanders built, we have our gear, we have our loadouts, and all of our stats that we have for fighting. Now, how does a kingdom and an alliance prepare for war? Now, this is the short and condensed version, but it's going to be enough information that you can take what I'm going to teach you back to your alliance and your kingdom to prepare for war. When you look at your alliance, you need to look at your technology, and specifically the alliance skills. When you're going into war, having all of these skills available to be used is very, very important. Now, remember, you can only use 1 alliance skill at a time. They do not stack. Now, all of these skills do have a 48-hour cooldown. So after you use it, it does begin the 48 hours. The next thing your leadership needs to look into are actually the troops and the people that are in the alliance. They need to know exactly who are your rally leaders, who are going to be your garrisons, and who is going to be the one open field fighting and considered rally fillers and garrison fillers. We need to know as an alliance leadership who is doing what, so that way they know their role and responsibility to the alliance and the kingdom as a whole. For example, if your alliance has a lot of rally leaders and a lot of garrison leaders, and another alliance may be lacking that, it's best to try to distribute your rally and your garrison leaders to the other alliances to make sure that they're all ready to go. And sometimes you may need to appoint those rally and garrison leaders to a titled officer position, like this one here, a counselor, because they may need to change the garrison very quickly in a structure. Most of the time, this data is gathered a couple of days before war, or actually even gathered even before that. The alliance leadership knows ahead of time who has what gear and who has what commanders, which will help better prepare them for the battlefront. The other kind of stats that the alliance leadership needs to gather, which are important throughout KVK or any type of battle, are actually your kills and your deaths. And deaths are gathered a little bit differently, but your kills are tracked via a ranking system. So that way you can easily open up a player's stats and check the amount of kills they have. You can adequately determine how active that member is during war. The other stat you can gather is also deaths, but that is actually listed in their more info tab per person. This is probably one of the more hardest stats to gather because you have to do a couple more clicks and it has to be per person. But deads are very important when it comes to fighting in war, because the amount of deads that they do have shows that the person is not afraid of war and is more likely to fight harder and longer in the war front. And they're not afraid to lose a couple of troops. All of these stats are used to help with the R4s and the R5s of the alliances, so to help determine the type of rewards that they're going to get. If you're in a kingdom that fights heavy, then most people should have heavy amount of kills and deaths. And that also includes high honor too, because those that have a mix and combination of all of those stats are those that you really stand out in a kingdom. The last thing that we're going to talk about are your build plans for fighting, because this is probably the most important piece when it comes to determining who you are fighting. Knowing your allies and knowing your enemies. You need to know exactly where they stand on a map. So that way, when you build out these next couple of load plans for war, you know exactly where you're going, and your alliances too. But how do they know? By talking. by briefings, by long conversations that are specific to each alliance and each team, because they need to know exactly what is going on. Now, normally this is happening the day of war. Why? Because we don't want information leaked out. So this normally happens the day of, even all the way up until the hour before. So that way, no leaking of plans is done. That way, you can approach your enemy on the correct war front and fight them at the fullest strength possible. Okay guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Man, I covered so much information for you guys when it comes to preparing for war. But all of this information is very wave top, and it covers the information that you need to know to prepare your army and your city and your kingdom and your alliance for war. Because all of this information is very important and will help you as a player in the long run, because you're going to do this over and over and over again. It's best to learn from your mistakes and teach yourself better tactics and better strategies to help prepare your troops and your commanders for war. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, because passes are going to be opening soon. And if you're watching this after passes open, you're going to check in the description for a link to the live stream that's going to be happening on Sunday at 17 UTC. I hope to see you guys there, because let me tell you, we are ready for war. Our troops are ready. Our commanders are ready. Our kingdom is ready. Our allies are ready. So let's get this thing rolling. But that's it for me, guys. So for now, just keep it real.